listening to Radio Sputnik. Telling the untold.
And we are live from America and just outside the Matrix, or right now, way outside the Matrix. It is time for the show once again that brings you to the truth behind the headlines, and it's buried pretty deep right now. I'm investigative journalist Lee Stranahan, and this is The Backstory. Now I got to welcome everybody. I've been noticing an uptick in my social media following on Twitter particularly, but also we got more people watching than ever, and I want to welcome you to a free speech zone. Here you go on Radio Sputnik, and we'll be talking about that issue and why I think that's important. I've always said this, I'm a very free speech advocate, and ironically, Sputnik and Russian-funded media is the place to get free speech right now. And on that tip, as the kids say, or the kids who liked hip-hop in the 90s said, anyway, our co-host today, great friend of the show, we love talking to Carmine Sabia. Hey, Carmine, how you doing?
I am fantastic. How are you?
And I sort of segued into you the way I did because you had talked to me yesterday, and you were like, well, I'm critical of Putin on this. Should I be on the show? And I said immediately, of course, because first off, we love you, and the ladies love you, as you know.
Of course.
And, of course. And, no, but I said, of course, immediately, because I wouldn't have it any other way. We're not saying to anybody, hey, screen the calls, only get people who are in favor of that. And the reason why is because it's because I'm confident enough in my position. Does this make sense, Carmine, what I'm getting at here? That I'm confident enough in my position to discuss it. I'm not saying that to try to intimidate you into saying I'm right or anything, or that Putin's right on this or Russia's right on this. I'm just saying that you know what it's like. If you're confident in what you think, you have no problem talking about it, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And my position on it is not black and white.
Yeah, well, that's good, because it's not a racial issue at all, and I don't know why you're bringing that up, Mr. Black Lives Matter, Carmine. Once again, he's always got to play the race card.
I know.
Mullions. But let me tell you who's on the show today. First off, straight out of the UK, our friend Ian Schilling. And Ian is appropriate for what, because I'm going to compare some of this information war to COVID-19, Carmine. That's what I'm going to get at. And in the second hour, we got the great Ted Rawls, straight out of Manhattan. Carmine, do me a favor, just with some gravitas in your voice, a Liam Neeson level of gravitas, say the name of the show to watch what happens.
This is The Backstory.
There's that satisfying Law and Order style thud that happens there. And so let me tell you, Carmine, one of the reasons I do really like and respect you, I won't say love because it might creep you out, but no,
hold me.
But you're the first person who I asked to be a co-host on the show, because I always do enjoy talking to you. And one of the reasons I do is that I know in the run-up to January 6th, you were taking the brave stance of going against a lot of people who were Trump supporters, who were Republicans, and saying this January 6th thing that's coming up seems like it's going to be stupid.
Yeah, and then that day I was too.
That's right. And furthermore, on the COVID-19 thing, let me try to summarize your position, why I respect it, and I'm hopefully not getting anything wrong. Carmine was not a guy who had a knee-jerk reaction on COVID-19. In fact, he was very upfront in saying, I'm getting vaccinated at a time when people were getting attacked for such a thing. How am I doing so far, Carmine?
So far, you're spot on.
And then later, when more evidence came out Carmine was also, I think, brave enough to say, you know what? I'm not in favor of certain things. I think they have gone too far politically with COVID-19, right? You said that.
Correct. I'm vaccinated and I'm boosted. But I'll give you an example real quick. My niece, in order to keep her job, had to get her booster today. Okay? Her job at a hospital. Now, she's vaccinated the first time, didn't want it, but had to get it, right? 6 weeks ago, she got COVID. She got over it. We are now 6 weeks later. She had to get a booster. There is no medical reason for that. That's ridiculous that if you had something 6 weeks ago, you'd have to get a booster vaccine for it now. It's a one-size-fits-all strategy. So while I'm not against the vaccines or the boosters, if you so choose to get them, because I don't believe you should be injecting anything in your body by force, if you so choose to get them, I'm in favor of them. This one-size-fits-all mandate approach is psychotic.
And I've had medical problems in the past where I passed out, had nothing to do with COVID-19. That was in D.C. beforehand. And then I got vaccinated.
You play that I don't want to get too graphic, the FCC, but you play that strangulation game, right?
No, I do not. Autoerotic asphyxiation, that's not my kink. It doesn't go that way. I wouldn't be into it for me. No, I'm definitely more on I'd be on the flip side of that. But
okay.
We'll just leave it there. I would have the tendency to be more, I'll put it like this.
Yeah, I'm with you.
You know, well, let me talk personally for a second, not about that specifically.
Please.
But, you know, I'm going through a divorce, and I'm going to say something because I've only realized it in the past few days. I had a talk with a friend of mine about this, that when I was I'm in a sense missing my marriage. Let me explain. My wife did not like talking about politics. And when I was first getting divorced, I thought to myself, the next woman I'm with, I wanted to be someone who I can talk to politics about and likes me and supports me politically. Does that make sense? That's logical,
yes.
Right?
Yes, especially in today's day and age, you don't want to date somebody who is vehemently against what you are for.
Right. But now I'm thinking maybe what I want is someone, because here's the thing, I get tired. You know, I'm on this, when I'm not doing the show, I'm researching what's going on with Ukraine and Russia basically 24/7. And do you know what would be nice?
That's our life.
And it would be nice to have somebody who doesn't want to talk politics, who just wants to lay there with me and we'll hug each other. And I don't even mean sexually, because that puts an extra pressure on. I just mean,
Lee, are you asking to hold me?
No, I'm not. No, sir. You're not my type. First off, you're not nearly squishy enough. Second off, no.
I'm pretty chubby, man.
I'll tell you what else I like about women is I'll be honest, is the way they smell.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Like, they don't smell like men. And good.
Yeah.
I'd say I'm in favor of that. But that's why I made a joke this morning. I said, is it cynical of me to ask if maybe the ideal marriage partner is someone clean, calm, who doesn't speak the same language as you? Because I don't want someone dumb, right? Who wants that? But on the other hand,
I've been on both sides of this, Lee. And
okay, good. This is what I'm asking, Carmine. I thought you would. You're like the Dear Abby of the show. Go ahead, Carmine.
I've been on both sides of this. So during the Bush administration, I was dating this girl who was absolutely just stunning girl. Okay, about 4'12", which is 5 feet, you know, but I always called her 4'12". About 5 foot tall. Okay, perfect size for me because I'm 5'7".
So it didn't sound like you were dating a midget. That's what you're trying to do.
But I'm 5'7", so for me that's perfect, right?
Right.
And so, you know, I dated this girl. So one day I said to her, just, you know, she always talked about innocuous things, and I said, hey, we were talking about something, and I go, yeah, Dick Cheney, whatever he said that day, and she goes, who? I go, Dick Cheney. She goes, who's that? Now, this is during the Bush administration, during the war. You don't know who Dick Cheney is? She's like, no. We broke up like a week later. I couldn't, as beautiful as she was, if I can't have a conversation with you about it, that's just not going to work. Now, on the other side of that, I've had girls who are very into politics, and that can also be frustrating because, like you said, I wake up in the morning, I'm the news. I'm researching. I'm watching news. I'm calling sources. And I'm doing that till like maybe 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. Okay. When that's over, I don't want to, so a lot of times I talk to my friends and, my friends aren't really as into it as I am. And so if I want to talk about it, they can have the conversation, but they can also talk about wrestling or something ridiculous and we can laugh. And because I don't want to always be, because listen, this is a stressful job. It's depressing sometimes. We see things that are horrible sometimes that the general public doesn't see also. Like, I'm sure you've been in a situation where you see pictures of something and you can't publish them because they're too graphic for the public, but you've already seen them.
Absolutely, yeah.
But you've already seen them. You know what I'm saying? So we see things a lot of times that other people don't see, and we know things. I always say it's funny. I always say to my friends, like, if you knew the stuff I knew, you'd jump off a roof. And but you have to have a certain personality for it, right? See, my dog agrees. It doesn't depress me. So sometimes you need that break from it. So I would want a girl who's into it enough that we can have the conversation, but not obsessed with it like you and I are, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. The problem is then, and I learned this in my second marriage, is then they start to get adamant. Well, here's the other thing, too. If and what this is like, too. But I'm in the mode right now where because of the public position I've taken on this, which is the only position I take in the sense of being public, I don't want to have hidden political positions. Does that make sense, Carmine?
Yep. And one of the first things I do every day, believe it or not, is I go to your Twitter feed since this war started.
And so I'm getting attacked a lot, and there's trolls, and they say traitor and I should be killed and stuff like that. Now,
I've seen
that used to bug my wife, and I get that. No one wants to see the person they're with. It's not even she was against me. She could be on my side. She doesn't like to see it, right?
Correct.
And I get that. But you know what? At least I do this for a living. If this is my hobby, there are people who do this not for a living. They've got a regular job, and this is just something they're interested in. The same thing gets said to them. So they're not even getting paid for it, at least. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, correct. And
so I've got that going for me, which is nice. But go ahead, Carmine.
Well, it's interesting because I've taken a pretty pro-Ukraine position on it. I don't know if it's actually interesting. I said to you last week, I'm not necessarily pro-Ukraine. It's a super corrupt country. Okay. Ukraine is a super corrupt country. It has its own problems. I don't think that I don't think war was the answer. I think there was other things.
Okay, so let's start to get into the issue. Now let's segue from laying here and hugging each other to get into the issues here.
Real quick, I've said some things that are pro-Russia and pro-Putin, and not pro, but like pointing out the Nazis in Ukraine, pointing out the corruption in Ukraine, and of course, immediately forget every other tweet Carmine has sent. He's a Russian and a traitor.
Well, here's the thing. You could come on this show, and say Putin's a bald SOB, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't make any difference. You'd still be attacked for being on this show as a Putin puppet. It doesn't make any difference. But let me ask you a question. Forget who's right or wrong here for a second. Leave that aside completely. Let's just say there's two sides, the Ukrainian side and the Russian side. We know that. If the Ukrainians win, whatever that means, who is winning? What I mean by that is, it seems to me the Ukrainian side are exactly, this is the government that tried to get Trump impeached, tried to keep him from getting elected in 2016. And everybody who's pro-Ukraine, none of them are people I think you agree with. Soros, I could go down the list.
Correct.
So what I'm saying is, what does the Ukraine win? Who does that, who, advantage who? Who wins if Ukraine wins?
I think the West wins, for sure. Because the West,
the parts of the West that you the parts of the West that you like, or the parts that you don't like?
Ultimately, it doesn't really matter, because I think, like I said, I believe Putin and Russia had valid arguments. I just don't think the war, invading, was a way to go about it.
Well, I'll come back to that in a second. But here's the thing. I don't like the West in terms of its stands on geopolitics, foreign policy, that kind of thing. We've been wrong on everything. We supported Al-Qaeda and created ISIS in Syria. I saw that. And that was by the way, that was the Obama administration. And that's the other, I could look at this, I could break it down from Republican versus Democrat thing and say that really who wins here. But if the West means Dick Cheney and Barack Obama and Joe Biden, screw the West. I'm not in favor of the West. Now, what I like about the West, obviously, is the music and the movies and barbecue and stuff that I like about it culturally. And I like the ideals that this country was founded on. I like the founding fathers. And that's back when Russian, in 1776, Russia was not against us, but the UK, and we got Ian Schilling coming in about 10 minutes, was against us. And so I'm not really in favor of the West, per se, when it comes to our geopolitics. I think we've been wrong on everything, and evilly wrong. What say you, Carmine?
I don't know about everything, but a lot of things.
Name something we weren't wrong. Name something we weren't wrong on.
World War II.
Okay, even in World War II, that's when, who was our ally then?
I got you.
Well, that was Russia. That was Russia, yeah. Right? And do you know how many Russians died in World War II? Do you know what that number is?
I do not.
So conservative estimates are 20 million.
Wow.
That's a conservative estimate. The high estimate is 27 million. So it's not that far off. But everyone, historians everywhere, agree 20 million people. So Russia played a huge cost. And
Absolutely.
They were fighting in Operation Barbarossa. They were fighting the Nazis and defeated the Nazis. And that's one of the reasons that Russia doesn't like Nazis now. It's one of the reasons. But they were our allies. And as soon as World War II ended, the CIA, the guy who was the head of the CIA, they decided to focus on picking on Russia. And I mentioned that number, that 27 million. That's a huge number of people to die in a war. I mean, just think about it.
At the same time, and here's where we're gonna talk. Are we going to defend what Russia did during that time? Are we going to defend communism and tyranny and how many people Stalin killed and Khrushchev?
No, but here's how many people Stalin killed. Answer: less than 20 million. This is what I don't like is I don't like people using communism, which I don't like. And by the way, apparently Russia didn't like. Putin's been very critical of communism and of the Bolsheviks. He's out all over the place. He, in fact, did something where a couple months ago, he compared the woke Americans to mistakes made under the Bolsheviks. So Putin's very critical. And the communists in Russia don't like Putin.
Well, because the
That being
Bolsheviks would be more in line with the American left.
Yes, and he said that. And Putin said that. And he was not saying it like praising the American left. Putin is a pro-family values, pro-religion.
Yeah, normally, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, and what I'll ask is, I want to get to Ingrid. I want to get a call in here because Ingrid's calling 202-521-1320. But think about this, Carmine. What alternative did Putin have after 8 years of attempting negotiations? After saying to the United States, saying to Ukraine, follow the Minsk agreements that you guys agreed to in 2015, Ukraine, Russia, I think, was extraordinarily patient. And if you can tell me what you think the alternative would have been here, because they've tried negotiation. Just think about that, Carmine. 202-521-1320. Ingrid, what's on your mind?
Well, a lot, but two I want to mention, and the second one is Tulsi. But I don't know if you saw on Mark Sloboda's Twitter a couple of days ago, he posted a video in Ukrainian with subtitles of the Azov or Pravi sector youth leader bragging, boasting about the effectiveness of them and saying we may have been only 5% or 0.5% of the people at Maidan, but we were the effective percent. It's because of us that all this happened. It's a very, very powerful self-indictment, that whole video. You should really...
I think that was the one where he also said, without us, it would have been a fruit parade. And he didn't mean that critical of bananas. It was a homophobic slur. Is that the one you're talking about, Ingrid?
That is the one. And
yes. So right. And that's one of the reasons it's so shocking to me. You must have also seen the video came out officially from Ukraine, from some of the people who were taking the bullets and putting them in lard in order to, I guess, by the way, if you're shot, even if you're Muslim, I don't think you really care if the bullet was dipped in lard. It's the bullet part, not the lard part, you're more worried about. But you must have seen that, right, Ingrid?
Well, no, but I did hear somebody mentioning it. But I want to get on Tulsi.
By the way, it was officially from the Twitter site of one of the division of a Ukrainian thing. I mean, I saw it. I went right to the site. It's on their own site, posted by them. And people were in there going, hey, you shouldn't post this because they're already accusing you of being like Nazis. Well, that's because they're Nazis. But go ahead, Ingrid.
Yeah, right. As you know, Tulsi spoke at CPAC. And this is now an independent, it's on YouTube. Just Tulsi Gabbard CPAC. You can Google her speech, 25-minute speech. Very ponderous. If you think you're ponderous, very strong. It was about God and the Constitution, especially First Amendment, and the responsibility, the right of the people, if the government has abused its mandate, to abolish and reform the government. It was an amazing speech, really.
Yeah, and I would expect nothing less. And again, Tulsi's going to get attacked. Tulsi, I've talked about this before. The first time I met Andrew Breitbart, thanks for the call, Ingrid. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, Caroline, but the first time I met Andrew Breitbart, I was writing for Huffington Post. I was a Democrat. And Andrew said to me, there's more room to move as a Republican. And what he meant by that is that the Democrats will put you into a straitjacket and they don't want any deviation. But you know this, Carmine, and at the time I thought he was nuts, but I quickly realized he was exactly right. That the Republic, would you agree that there's more room to move as a Republican?
Oh, God, yes.
Right?
God, yes. We got, like I said, my opinion on the Russia-Ukraine situation is nuanced. I have criticisms of both sides. So as a Democrat, It's all or nothing. You're all in or you're not.
Right. So you get a very pro-Ukrainian, Lindsey Graham or Roger Wicker, but no. Do you know what no one's actually suggested with me? They've said dumb stuff like traitor and stuff like that. No one has even suggested to me, and I don't think you are either, that I'm violating some Republican principle in my stand. Right? Do you agree with that?
Absolutely not. Yeah, no.
Right.
Absolutely
not. And what's interesting is the Democrats used to hate it when I was a Democrat because I homeschooled at the time my son Shane. We were criticized for that. He's still my son Shane, by the way, not at the time, but you know. He's out of school. That's all I'm saying. But for homeschooling, we were criticized by the Democrats. And the Democrats are the real mental fascists here. Absolutely. Right now, let me throw back to you, Carmen. The question I asked. We only got a couple minutes. You'll have the floor here. What should Putin have done? Should he have tried to negotiate? He did. Should he have waited? He did. People were getting killed, and there was no sign Ukraine or the U.S. were going to stop doing that. So, what should have happened, Carmen?
I mean, look. I felt like if he kept it to the Donbass region, I would have been okay with that. But right now we're talking about Kiev. We're 50 miles outside of Poland dropping missiles. We are one misguided missile away from World War III. One mistake away from World War III. That terrifies me. And I don't think that, again, if he stuck to Donbass, I would have been fine with that. I would have understood it. I don't think you have to topple the government. I don't think you have to take out Zelensky and actually kill him. I think there's things that could have been done different.
That hasn't happened so far.
It hasn't happened yet,
right?
But me and you were on here 2 weeks ago saying he wasn't going to invade either, and he did. Right? So
well, so let me address just that point for just one quick sec. I'm going to separate this into military, economic, and information war aspects that we can look at. We'll be talking about those throughout the show. But I don't have a problem with Russia lying about their military intentions because I think that's what you do in war. In other words, does that make sense?
Sure. I absolutely understand not calling your shot.
Right. That's a very good way to put it. I would not like it if they were lying about their political intentions. They said this at the UN. We don't want to occupy Ukraine. And I don't think Russia wants to go in there and make Ukraine part of Russia. I think they want to put in a government that's more pro-Russian. But I hear the music 100%. Playing. What's that?
No, you're 100% correct. It would defeat the purpose of them taking over Ukraine. They wouldn't have a buffer between them and NATO anymore.
Right, and I think that's a very good way. A buffer, a borderland, as it were, is a very good way to put it. But we got more coming up. Ian Schilling, straight out of the UK. I want to talk to Ian about a couple of things. He's in an interesting position because you know the UK's said that Ian can go over and fight there. Did you know that, Carmine?
I did not know that.
Well, it's not about Ian, just because he's British. We'll talk about that coming up right after this. And we're taking your calls all show, 202-521-1320. This is what free speech looks like on The Backstory.
Want to talk? Get in touch with us at radio@sputniknews.com.
So, Sean, what do you want to talk about today?
Well, Bob, that's easy.
I want to talk about the need to stop the development of self-driving cars.
Again, Sean, you're driving me nuts. I think the self-driving car thing's already out of the gate.
No. It's never too late. See, now the leading experts in the field, I mean, just pick one, whichever one, leading experts have repeatedly warned us about the dangers of artificial intelligence. Look, I'm telling you, man, we have to stop the robots by any means necessary.
I see what you did there.
Yep.
Tune into our show By Any Means Necessary daily from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time on Radio Sputnik. And don't forget to call in at 3:20 p.m. to our studio number 202-521-1320.
And if you miss us live, check us out on SputnikNews.com, Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts to stay up to date on the latest political, social, and economic movements shaping the world around us.
Feeling kind of blue, but maybe also kind of red, and kind of purple, and kind of alone? You've got a friend on Radio Sputnik. Tune into Political Misfits from 12 to 2 Eastern Time, Monday through Friday, for news, politics, and culture without the two-party bias. Catch us daily on 105.5 in Washington, D.C., or 102.9 or 104.7 in Kansas City. Or find us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your news.
Are you bored? Are you lonely? Do you need a hug? Well, we can't give you that, but we can keep you up to date on Radio Sputnik.
And we are back. I'm investigative journalist Lee Stranahan. This is the best damn radio show in the world, a free speech zone in a time of war. This is the backstory. We're joined by our great co-host on Mondays, Carmine Mondays here on the backstory. Carmine Sabia is joining us. And now, straight out of the UK, Ian Schilling is joining us. And I praised you before, Carmine, and I said one of the reasons I like you on here is you're a fair person who will admit when information, he learns new things. You're willing to change your mind.
Absolutely.
But you've also got strong convictions. And let me now praise Ian Schilling, Carmine. Let me say that Ian was more right than I was on the COVID-19 thing at first. And he's never come on and called me a dumb yank. And I appreciate it, Ian. How you doing today?
Hi, guys. Thanks for inviting me. I'm doing great.
Now, let's see how honest Ian is, though. Let's see how honest Ian is, though, really. Would you admit, Ian, that the Beatles are a little overrated?
No, I love the Beatles. Well, their early stuff. Not so much the later ones. But when they got going, up to about 1968 or something, they were great. I love the Beatles.
Yeah, no, I love them. I love them. The White Album's a favorite album.
I love lots of American 60s bands as well. Loads of them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hate all the music from the 60s.
So that's a personal issue. We'll have to discuss with you some other time. But you cannot overrate the Beatles or Monty Python. Monty Python was the greatest sketch comedy troupe in world history.
I submit to you that the British invasion of the 80s was better than the British invasion of the 60s.
You're a big Frankie Goes to Hollywood fan, is that it?
Oh, Duran. Come on, man.
Do you know who's actually woke?
Bandu Ballet.
Do you know who's actually red-pilled? Is Right Said Fred. Have you seen their Twitter feed? Have you seen that, Ian?
Yes, they've been against all the lockdowns and the mandatory vax orders and vax passes since very early. I mean, I don't know when, but mid 2020, they came out and obviously all got smeared by all the mainstream media for it.
Right Said Fred is on, not musically, because I'm more of a Clapton fan than a Right Said. Again, God bless them. But they've been very gutsy in their stand on Twitter, and anybody should check out their Twitter feed. But, Ian, let me ask you this. I hinted before that you could go over and join the fight in Ukraine. And the reason I said that, it's not about you personally, but Liz Truss the foreign minister for the UK said that UK citizens can go over to Ukraine and fight. Is that right, Ian?
Yes. Liz Truss is a neocon nutjob. She's to completely doolally. I mean, there's a famous picture of her sitting in the turret of a tank with a cockeyed helmet on, and a soldier's helmet on that's all askew. And
Has she met John Kerry?
Sorry?
Has she met John Kerry? It sounds like you were describing John Kerry there for a second.
Oh, Liz Truss is just a neocon nutjob, warmonger. I mean, it's ridiculous.
If you got British citizens...
Brits to fight with the Nazis in Ukraine, brilliant stuff. But it's not just the Brits, the Americans are going as well. The Americans are now... Somebody is now encouraging American vets to go and fight for Ukraine.
Is that even legal?
Isn't that very... Okay, so, as people have gotten put in jail for going to fight for other countries.
Yeah, like going to fight for the Kurds when the Syrian war was in its early stages and the Kurds were allied with Americans, but they still jailed people for going to fight with the Kurds. When they went in about 2014 or so, when the Kurds were still firmly allied with the US.
That's a big
Carmen,
problem.
what were you saying?
No, I didn't think that was legal. That's a big problem if we've got American and British citizens going over there to fight this thing. That's
they've been going over to Ukraine for ages, ever since the Civil War started in 2014. But the elements that have gone over, I mean, there's been some Americans, I mean, not many, a few dozen maybe or something, and a handful of Brits are gone, but they're Nazis, right? They're really, really extreme Nazis who've gone.
At a certain point,
because they're fighting alongside the Azov battalion and Nazis like that. That's who they're fighting with.
Well, because at a certain point, you get enough Americans and Brits over there, and you're asking for World War III.
Yeah. Yeah, well, now what's Russia going to think about this? Both the UK government and now, I don't know whether it was an official thing from the American government or just something in the media encouraging vets to go and fight in Ukraine. But the Russians can say, well, now America and Brits have got troops in Ukraine. It's really a war now.
That's a real problem. And that something like that can start World War III. And I did not hear about this. Is the first time I'm hearing about this. Is a here on the backstory. I've been watching CNN all day. Did not hear a word about this.
And if the Brits or Americans are encouraging their people to go and fight, then you can get Poles as well, because there's Nazis in Poland. Really extreme right-wingers in Poland who are neo-Nazis as well. So they could go and fight, because they've been in Ukraine before. There's been some Polish Nazis who've gone to Ukraine when the Civil War was going on in 2014 and 15. There were some Poles in there as well. And there might be some other European countries, I don't know. There might be some extreme Romanians who go or whatever, I don't know. But, I mean, it's going to get horrible. You're going to get, these people start getting killed. There's going to be Romanians and Poles getting killed, or Americans and Brits getting killed in a senseless war. It's just stupid.
Where in England are you from?
Well, I'm originally from the south, but now I live in the Midlands.
Okay, I'm just... I'm trying to spy. I got a lot of friends in England. I'm trying to, because your accent sounds more London-ish.
Well, I did used to live in London for a few years.
Okay, it sounds just more Londonish. Anyway, did you see the woman from the Ukraine today on Fox News? Did you guys see this? I wanted to get your opinions on this.
The MP with the gun you're talking about.
I'm talking about the New World Order chick.
Yes, the blonde, yeah.
Who actually said the words, "We're fighting for the New World Order"? I was very taken aback by that.
Hey, have you seen that clip, Ian?
No, I haven't seen that one.
So there's an MP, I believe her name is Kira, which is the waste of a good name. Dagny Taggart on Twitter will know what I'm talking about if she's listening. But there's an MP, and she's, by the way, she's spoken at the World Economic Forum. Did you know that, Carmen?
I did not.
So this woman is an MP in Ukrainian, and she's spoken at Klaus Schwab's World Economic Forum. So when she says the New World Order, Carmine, my point is she knows what she's talking about.
She knows
it's
she's
not
talking about. That's what I was saying.
Yes. She said, what she said was on Fox News, she said, we're fighting for the New World Order. That's what she said, Ian. Does that make you happy?
No, it doesn't. I mean, this is a fight between the globalists and freedom and democracy. I mean, there's Klaus Schwab, the WEF, the George Soros, all the Bill Gates, the globalists. This is what has been going on with COVID all the time, that the governments are trying to grab powers and totalitarian powers to control people.
Now, have you guys seen? Well, let me relate to that. Have you guys seen the footage of Zelensky, the current president, actor turned president turned actor again? Zelensky, have you seen him speaking at the World Economic Forum in 2020 before COVID-19? And he says, we want stakeholder investors in Ukraine before the next worldwide crisis, before the pandemic. Have you seen this footage?
Yes, no. I did see that. Yes.
Yeah, it was kind of shocking, wasn't it, Ian?
Well, but I mean, who else are they going to install in Ukraine as the puppet president? They're going to install a globalist, aren't they? Right?
No, that's exactly right. And Carmine, you can see it, and the whole speech is on YouTube. And it's not, again, it's like this woman who was saying she's fighting for the New World Order. If you look into her a little bit more, you'll see, because she's spoken at the World Economic Forum, she knows exactly what she's talking about. If she says the New World Order, it's not like she does not speak a well English. Does that make sense? She knows exactly what she's talking about. And
Well,
go ahead, Ian.
For people to say that, because somebody was arguing today, well, that's not what she meant. I said, let me tell you something. It's amazing to me how many Western leaders have uttered the words, the New World Order, historically. But it means nothing. And I've always said, Putin is against the NWO, which is one of the main reasons I've always liked Putin. Just against this whole thing in Ukraine, I think there was a better way. That's all I'm saying.
Well, what I'm saying, though, is, but you still think about it. Ian, what's your take on this war in general, military action in general, on the part of Russia? I think Putin tried everything negotiating-wise, waited it out for 8 years, and I'm anti-war, but I'm not a pacifist. Does that make sense, Ian?
Yeah. Well, they pushed Putin too far, didn't they? Obama started constructing first strike nuclear missile silos in Romania and Poland. They were completed during Trump, but Obama started them in about 2015 or something, and it took a few years to build. Right, but they're capable of launching Tomahawk nuclear cruise missiles at Moscow, right? And they're 1,000 miles into Russia, and Russia would only have sort of 5 minutes warning if they launched Tomahawk cruise missiles from Romania or Poland. Russia would have about 5 minutes to decide whether it was a real attack or a hoax, and what to do about it, and whether to launch their missiles. So the chances of making a mistake and starting a nuclear war over an accident, because nuclear war nearly happened several times during the Cold War when they were all trigger happy in the Cold War. It happened, 4, 5, 6 times that somebody could have pulled the trigger and we would have all been wiped out. And now they put these nuclear missile silos in Romania and Poland. Russia's very worried. Naturally, it's the Cuban Missile Crisis all over again.
No, absolutely. Right? Russia has an absolute bone of contention. I think to dispute that is ludicrous or nationalist and you're just not looking at it from anybody else's perspective. Russia has absolute serious national security concerns.
Well, and how about this, Ian? I'm sure you saw at the OSCE in Germany where Zelensky said about a few days before Putin decided to take this military action, Zelensky said Ukraine needs to get nuclear weapons again. Carmine, did you see that?
I did not see that.
Well, he said that a few days before publicly. You saw that, right, Ian?
No, I didn't see that one.
Yeah, I mean, he was very clear. Zelensky himself said, we may need to get nuclear weapons again. And that's even closer than Poland. In case the 4 minutes wasn't enough, let's go to 2, right? He could have rolled nuclear weapons across the border. But go ahead, Ian.
I mean, well, they just pushed Putin too far, didn't they? Biden didn't want to even talk about the nuclear missile silos in Poland and Romania. And Putin's other concern is he doesn't want Ukraine and Georgia to become NATO members, does he? Because he wants to remain neutral. He doesn't want NATO in Ukraine or Georgia because that's too close. And the other thing that triggered him off was the Nazis in Donbass started shelling the civilians in the separatist areas of Donbass again, and they were killing people. And they said they were going to escalate it. So he had a choice. I mean, half the people in Donbass are Russian citizens now. Russia offered them all Russian passports and Russian citizenship, and about half of them took it up. So Putin couldn't allow his own people, his own Russian citizens, to be slaughtered. So he had to do something. It's as if, you know, Americans living in, I don't know, the UK was suddenly being attacked. Americans wouldn't stand for it, would they? Or in Mexico, they wouldn't stand for it.
No, right. And let me ask you this, Ian. So because you're in the UK, so I always like talking to people in foreign lands. That's where you are as far as I'm concerned, in foreign lands about what the media is like there. Because I know here in the U.S., the media is pushing the narrative that Russia is losing, that the invasion's going very badly for Vladimir Putin. And I think that's a load of hooey because obviously Russia has not even brought out literally the big guns, the serious weaponry that they have yet.
I was going to say the only reason it's close is because he's not trying to destroy. They could roll over to Ukraine in an hour.
And the U.S., with a much bigger military, it took them weeks to take Baghdad.
Correct.
Yeah, if you look at the progress between the invasion of Iraq in 2003 and the progress that Russia has made in Ukraine, they're quite similar. Right? And Saddam didn't have an army because it had been all wiped out by sanctions. It had a few Republican guards, and that was it. But Ukraine's got 12,000 tanks or something, and got 120,000 troops in Donbass or the surrounding area. So, but Russia is not using its artillery or its fighter jet strike aircraft or whatever. Right? It's trying to minimise casualties in both civilians and the military. Right? When the onslaught started, right, and on the morning, the first day that it happened, and Russia targeted all the military bases and all the radar stations and air defense missiles and everything else, right? So they launched about 300 missile strikes or something, didn't they, against military targets? But they were careful to avoid hitting residential areas. There might have been one or two stray missiles or something, but they didn't even target the barracks of the Ukrainian troops because they would have all been asleep in their barracks. Right, so he could have killed thousands of Ukrainians in 2 hours, but he didn't, because he doesn't want a backlash of mass slaughter. He's trying to keep the number of people killed to an absolute minimum, right, and that's why he's having trouble taking over the cities like Kharkov and whatever. because he's,
Yeah.
I mean, the Americans, when they want to take over a city, they just flatten it with total carpet bombing, don't they? But Putin hasn't done that with Ukrainian cities. There's been very little infrastructure or residential damage. There's been a lot of damage to Ukraine military, but not to anything else.
Well, and in places like Kyiv, for instance, the electricity is still on. Elon Musk came out and said he'll supply internet. You don't need to, Elon, because they had internet in Kiev, right? They had electricity, internet, everything. If Putin had wanted to take out that infrastructure, the planes could have gone in and done it in the hour and a half that took out the Ukrainian.
Yeah, they could have done it in the first morning, couldn't they? It could have taken all the electricity power stations, the power grid, and the water supplies, the water purification plants or the pumping stations. He could have taken them all out. And people would have then been out without clean water and without electricity, right? But, of course, that would have got more Ukrainians against Russia, wouldn't it? So he didn't do that.
Now, I don't know. You're a young man, Ian, so you were not around during World War II. But in the Blitz, were the Germans trying to avoid taking out civilian infrastructure during the Blitz that I missed?
They deliberately targeted London, didn't they? They couldn't aim their missiles very well. They just aimed at the centre of London, and it went all over London. And most of London's residential, isn't it? So they killed loads of civilians. But that was the deliberate policy. But Hitler starting bombing London was in response to Churchill bombing German cities. Churchill actually started the bombing of civilians. Nobody mentions that in any war histories.
Well, like Dresden, for instance, which was a huge...
Well, that was later on, wasn't it? But they flattened it, didn't they?
Right.
They completely flattened Dresden. And almost all German big cities were flattened, weren't they, in carpet bombing. And there were tens of thousands of civilian casualties in all these cities from all this bombing.
Yeah,
but,
so
it's just... But
so let me throw it over
to anything like that.
Carmine, do you have a question for Ian Schilling, our guest right now?
I want to know more about the UK citizens fighting in Ukraine. Is that an official position of the government?
It's an official announcement by Liz Truss encouraging Brits to go and fight in Ukraine for the Ukraine on the side of the neo-Nazis. Yeah.
So in other words, that's a foreign minister. That's the equivalent of Secretary of State. It would be like if Blinken got up on TV and said, and Ian used the word encourage, and he's exactly right. She wasn't just saying, hey, it's okay if you want to. She was actively encouraging. Ian, are you headed over there?
Not in a million years, no.
So Liz Truss's feminine wiles did not work on you, Ian. But no, that's the official position, Carmine.
I can smell neocon BS a mile away.
Okay, I'm looking at it right now. It is very neocon. It is very neocon. No, I mean, Ian, do you share my concerns that we are on the precipice of possibly a very, very, very large-scale war here?
Well, there's a big risk of it, isn't there? I mean, I don't know how the peace talks have gone. They started today, didn't they? Somewhere on the border. Somewhere on the border on Belarus, so I don't know how they've gone. I mean, they're only lower level people at the moment. There's not Zelensky and Putin meeting up or anything, are they? As all these things, it's the lower level diplomats that try and negotiate the ground rules and a frame of operation or something to try and get an agreement. So I don't know.
Here's the thing, and I'll say this, Carmine, maybe you can comment on it. I think the problem is, I'm not sure where you come down on this, Ian, but the problem is that if you go into negotiations with somebody and they don't think you're serious, you're going to lose the negotiations. You've got to go in from a position of strength where the other side knows. I'll put it like this. If you go to negotiate for a car and they know that you'll take $1,000 for the car, but you're asking $3,000, you're gonna. If they know that you'll take $1,000, you're gonna get $1,000. That's it. So people need to know what you're serious about and what you're not serious about. If Putin is not serious, if he's just saber rattling, it's over in terms of negotiations. That's the general negotiation philosophy, is you've got to go in. Putin's, to use Putin in Trumpian terms, you've got to be willing to walk away from the table. So Putin's got to say, look, we're serious about the military thing, and we're going to keep going unless you want a negotiation. If you want a ceasefire, we'll give it to you under these circumstances. But I only think you can negotiate from a position of strength. First off, let me throw it to you, Ian, then I'll throw it to you, Carmine. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, well, this war is going to go on for weeks unless there's a ceasefire and peace deal, isn't it? I mean, the Russians are making slow and steady progress, right? They've had quite a big advance in the south, moving north from Crimea, but they haven't moved past Kharkov. And what they were trying to do was move past Kharkov and encircle all the large amounts of Ukrainian forces and where most of the neo-Nazis are in Donbass and just outside Donbass. So they're going to do a big circling operation from Kharkov right round to Mariupol, right, and cut all these troops off, right? Cut off 120,000 Ukrainian troops and all their armour. That's what they were trying to do, but they haven't got very far. They've made a lot of progress from Crimea, and they got to Kiev quite quickly as well. But the rate it's going, because Putin is avoiding civilian casualties, and he's not doing a Hitler-type blitzkrieg where they flatten everything and scorched earth policy. He's not doing that. So it's going to take ages for them to, meet their military objectives if they want to cut off all the troops in, near Donbass. So it would go on for weeks. I mean, when America invaded Iraq, it took them about 6 weeks to get to Baghdad, didn't it? It didn't happen overnight. And America were bombing everything in sight, weren't they? And loads of tanks that they built up. The Russians are still piling in tanks and reinforcements into Ukraine. And apparently they got supply problems, right? They've got to supply all these troops. There's only about 30,000 Russians in Ukraine, or yesterday it was only about 30,000. Not very many. They've got about 190,000 in the area, but only a small amount of them have actually gone into Ukraine. But they've got to supply these troops.
In that regard, Ian, let me ask you a macabre question. Do you think that if Russia had wanted to take out Zelensky, he'd be dead by now? And let me point out two things. Number one, the Soleimani attack, that was a way to send a drone in and assassinate somebody. The U.S. did that. And when Zelensky's out there on his cell phone doing videos, I assume Russia, who's this apparently, if you believe the United States deep state, of cyber geniuses, I assume they have a way to track Zelensky's cell phone. So they know exactly where he is, right? And if that's the case, and like right now, do you agree with me? And I think, honestly, if Russia wanted Zelensky dead, he'd be dead. What do you think about that? It's macabre.
Well,
I know.
They would have bombed the presidential palace on the opening salvo, wouldn't they, if they wanted him dead? Russia doesn't want Zelensky dead. What benefit would that give them? It wouldn't give them any benefit. It would just turn Ukrainians against Russia more, wouldn't it? There's no benefit for Russia to murder Zelensky. No benefit whatsoever.
No, I agree. It would create the first clown martyr in history. You don't often. Have you ever seen Zelensky's comedy? It's frightening. It's sub Benny Hill level, not to start a fight, Ian. But Ian Schilling, thanks so much for joining us. Fantastic appearance. We start to get perspective from the UK, and we're taking your calls right after this. 202-521-1320. I'm Lee Stranahan. It's a Carmine Monday. The great Carmine Sabia is joining us. Call in. This is a free speech zone on The Backstory.
listening to Radio Sputnik. Telling the untold.
And we are back. It is time for the second hour today, beginning of the week, on the best damn talk show in the world. I'm investigative journalist Lee Shanahan. It's a Carmine Monday. Carmine Sabia is joining us, and this is the backstory. Now, I'm going to give our intrepid producer, Rod, a heads up. Rod, we talked about you coming in to talk about the fighter aspect of this. So after the boom here, which I'll have you do, Carmine, I want to bring Rod on. Do you know about the fighter stuff going on? The guy who's the mayor of Kiev? Carmine?
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't, because again, I don't follow sports. So here's what I know. Russia, FIFA kicked out Russia. So no more soccer in the World Cup for Russia. Boo frickin' who. But I will say this, Carmine. Wait, let me just do this. Just say the name of the show, and then I'll complain about the concept of the World Series. But go ahead.
This is the backstory.
And again, it's a free speech zone here, 202-521-1320. Treef, I'll get you in 1 second. Let me make 1 point here, and then I'll bring Rod in, then we'll go to Treef. That's the schedule here. A friend of mine who was Irish, from Ireland, pointed this out a few years ago. Think about how we look to the world, Carmine. We have the World Series, right? You and I have talked about, you're a Yankees fan, I'm a Red Sox fan. But you know who's never played in the World Series?
Any other country besides the United States or Canada?
That's exactly right. Whereas the World Cup, soccer, right? They call it football. We don't call it football, even though our football, we don't really use our feet that much. They use their feet a lot in their football, okay. But soccer, the World Cup is literally an international event. Think how we look to the world where we call our baseball championships the World Series. We look kind of dorky, don't you think, Carmine?
Yeah.
It's embarrassing. See, because here's why. If we had the World Series and we actually were playing against teams from Central, South America, or even in recent years, Japan and Korea, we might get our butts cooked. Does that make sense? Because other people learn to play baseball.
Especially Cuba.
No, but other. Right. By the way, did you know that, and I'm serious here, did you know that Fidel Castro was signed to the minor leagues?
No.
Yes. Now, this is before he took over Cuba. But he was like he was going to play in the minors. He could have gone to the majors. I'm just saying. He would have been a perfect Yankee. You see what I did there? It's really just a pun on their name. But so Rod, how you doing? You have a nice weekend?
Yeah, no, weekend was good. It was good.
So Rod's a big Ultimate Fighting champion fan, right, Rod? Correct?
Yeah, no, I've been a boxing fan my whole life, and practiced martial arts a large portion of my life, or a good portion of my life, and so I also follow MMA.
Yeah, and let me just ask you, as a fight fan, do you think Putin is doing a rope-a-dope here, where he's just kind of waiting and holding back? You know what I'm saying? You see what I'm getting at, right, Karma?
I do.
Okay, Rod, what do you say?
No, I think so. You asked me last week, what did I think about the war going on and the footage we've seen, and I said it was precise. Putin's not like we had Ian Shion talk about it. He's not really going all out. He's really just, kind of just slapping Ukraine around and kind of trying to get them to get more rational. So.
Yeah, and I think this is going to end up like Ali Foreman, and the 8th, 9th round is coming very soon here. But talk about this guy who's the mayor of Kiev, who Victoria Nuland mentioned. Talk about who he is, because you know more about this than I do, Rod.
Oh, yeah, his name is Vitaly Klitschko, and his brother's name is Vladimir Klitschko, and they were both great heavyweight champions during their time. Unfortunately, well, no, I mean they never fought each other, so there was never settled which one was better. So they have a little complicated history. But after Vitaly Klitschko finished boxing, he became the mayor of Kiev, I believe, in 2013, so right before the Maidan. And, obviously he's a very popular boxer from Ukraine. And he originally, both of them fought out of Germany. They both, they're outliers. They're not like working class guys. They're really smart. They have like doctorate degrees. They have like 4 postgraduate degrees. So these guys, they're not dummies. They're not like Zelensky, an actor. And the past few years, they've been putting a lot of stuff on social media out there and against Russia and against Putin. And now they are posting pictures of him loading AK-47s in the military garb. And I believe last month he said he's training with the military, and the Ukrainian military is going to be in the front lines. And, it's just propaganda. Do people really believe that millionaires are going to go out in the front lines with soldiers and teenagers and try to fight Russians? It's just major propaganda.
And yeah, that's very interesting. By the way, I'm not a gun person, so I don't know this for sure. But that MP from Ukraine that was on Fox talking about fighting for the New World Order, someone told me, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, Carmine, that the gun she's holding isn't even real. It's an airsoft gun. Do either of you guys know whether that's true? I can't tell.
I don't know. I know that some of them looked wooden, and I saw a video where, one of them actually fell apart in somebody's hands.
Right, but yes. That was
definite,
the guy behind Poroshenko?
Yeah, there is a definite weird thing going on in terms of, what's the word I'm looking for? In terms of, I guess, propaganda. I mean, they're making Zelensky into Davy Crockett.
This is an actual headline that I saw the other day, Carmine. Is Zelensky George Washington? That was a mainstream publication.
Wow.
It literally put that out there. And whoever his PR team is doing a good job of promoting Zelensky as a hero. That's why I say I don't think I do believe you agree with what I was saying to Ian, that if Russia really wanted Zelensky dead, why is he still walking around? You see what I'm saying, Carmine?
I do agree with that. But I'll say this too. Have you noticed every picture they use of Putin, he looks like the devil? Every picture of Zelensky, he's like smiling. And I mean, our media, people talk about, because I hear all the time they say Russian state TV. And so we were talking, me and some friends of mine who are in the writing business, and we laughed about it because we go, what the hell do you think we have here? If I try to write something, let's say if I were to try and write something today and say, and I'm not pro-Russia, let's just say I wanted to write a piece today, okay, and say this is Russia's side of the story. Facebook, Twitter, and Google would crush it with the hammer of 1,000 Thors, okay? I would get kicked off of all social media platforms. So you think we don't have state media here? You're kidding yourself. We are absolutely limited, and I hate to admit this. We are 100% limited as to what we can write and what we can say. 100% limited. Not by the government. The government doesn't tell us what we can say, but their friends at Google and Twitter and Facebook. And if you don't believe me, harken back to the Hunter Biden story. It happens to us all the time, where we're told. Well, how many times I've gotten a letter like this? Well, your article was misinformation. Well, I used Joe Biden's exact quote. How's that misinformation? Well, because what he meant to say was this. Now I have to be Joe Biden's mind reader?
Apparently. And the other big news headline over the weekend, and I'll mention Amazon in 1 second here, but the big news headline is the EU is banning RT and Sputnik. And the guy who's the head of RT came out and said that nobody's going to get laid off over at RT. And one of the top people over there, woman, I saw the quote today, she was saying this exposes who's really pro-free speech. And the EU's been trying to get rid of us for a while. And let me mention Amazon. I'm in a film called Revealing Ukraine, directed by Igor Lopatnik, executive produced by Oliver Stone. It's a very good film. Amazon shadow banning it. If you look for Revealing Ukraine, they didn't take it down, but you can't find it in their search results. Did you see that?
Did not know about it.
Yes, and anybody, you can still find. Wait, say it again, Carmine.
How would one find it if one wants to watch it?
It's on YouTube, although no one gets paid. I'm not on a royalty basis, so I don't care. But and Oliver Stone, I'm sure, can pay rent this month. So I'm not saying go to YouTube to watch it, but you can. And look for the name Revealing Ukraine, probably in quotes or something like that. But it's a great film. And I'll tell you what else, why them hiding it is significant. Putin's in it. Forgive me. And so you get to hear from the horse's mouth what Putin thinks, what people like Medvedchuk and me say about this. And it's a very interesting film for that reason. They don't want you to hear what Putin says. And I think that's why hackers supposedly took down the Kremlin's English website, because they don't want you. But when it's hackers, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the hackers are in Arlington or Langley. And 202-521-1320. Want to make sure we get you. Tarif, thanks for holding. What's on? And Brave, I'll get you right after this. What's on your mind, Tarif?
Thank you for taking my call, Lee. Thank y'all. First, I'd like to say free Julian Assange and talk about the Ukraine situation. Alice McCurris was talking about that the economic situation, that the ruble is under attack now, especially they're hitting the banks with the SWIFT thing.
What's the weather?
Taking them off the currency. They're off the transactions. But, China had this thing called CIPS, which is another transfer. So,
but that really only matters about the money in relationship to other currencies. And I think Putin went into this, you agree with me, Jarif, knowing that everybody knew there were going to be economic sanctions. And that's why Russia said, I'm going to say this in a way that doesn't get us in trouble with the FCC, we poop on your sanctions. And they were a little more obscene on that. So I'm not sure and there's another line, Scott Adams, the Dilbert comic writer, was up there saying that people are saying Russia's going to starve. They're going to be like North Korea level. Have you seen that argument floating around, Carmine?
I have, yes.
And it's people who apparently don't know that Russia's one of the top food producers, particularly wheat, in the world. Do you think there's, from what you know, Carmine, do you think there's any way Russians are going to be starving?
No, but the economic sanctions will affect them. Let's not lie. But they're not going to starve, no.
Well, they're going to affect them, but they're going to affect us, too. When everybody here is paying $6 a gallon for gas in a couple weeks.
They are absolutely going to affect us.
Yeah. And I'm just saying, it may sell, by the way, I would buy Huawei stock if I were you, because Russia's smartest move would be to buy some of those Huawei phones from China, which I understand are pretty damn good phones. Although that new Galaxy S22 Ultra, I've got my eye on that. Looks like a very nice phone out of Korea. But Huawei I'll bet we'll start selling a lot of phones into Russia. That's my guess. 202-521-1320. Thanks for the call, Tarif. Great call. As usual, Brave, what's on your mind?
Hey, how's it going, guys? Can you guys hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yes.
Just want to make sure. So I have two questions that I would like to throw at you. But first, I have 2 points of just pure opinion. I think it's been really, really amazing yet frustrating to watch all of the independent media who are now who seem to have if not fallen in line with the mainstream narrative, are at least carrying water. People who I never would have thought would have, or at least not to the extent that they are now. I see a lot of apologizing, and I think it's I just think it's amazing.
Brave, Brave. Who are you thinking about? Name names.
Oh yeah, sure. I have no problem with it. They're not going to have me on anytime soon. So first and foremost, Breaking Point's Sagar and Crystal. They totally did a complete spin around and were apologizing for, and I've seen this a lot, but a lot of our independents apologizing for making the point that they didn't believe that Russia would invade, one, and then two, apologize for, I guess, what I see as questioning the United States classified information they were releasing about possible Russian false flags and things of that nature. So you had Sagar and Crystal on Breaking Points. On the Hill, Ryan Grimm and the guy Robbie, he went all the way out and did a full radar on how wrong and how Russia is to blame for this. And I'll jump past that right quick.
Well, wait. Let me just interrupt for 1 second, Brave, to make fun of Sagar and tell a true story. I've never liked Sagar, and Crystal Ball I've known about for years. And I've always, if you go back to Fault Lines, whenever my co-host on Fault Lines, Garland Nixon, would bring them up, I'd always trash them in a way that was somewhat aggressive. And here's why. When I was in the White House, I used to stand next to Sagar back when he was with the caller, I think. And when I introduced myself, and I said I had a show at Sputnik. And I said, you want to come on? He was like, no, not Sputnik. And I'm like, you're a wussy. I didn't say it to his face, but I kind of wrinkled my nose at him, gave him the gas face, if I can do a little third base reference there. But because I could always tell that Sagar and Crystal were trying to virtue signal on Russiagate. Oh, look, well, Russiagate was obviously a pack of lies. But you know what? I was putting my money where my mouth is, and I was saying that Russiagate was a slam against Putin and Russia as much or more as it was a slam against Trump. So I'm not at all surprised that Sagar and Crystal Ball folded under pressure. They're careerists. I've never trusted them. They're not honest journalists. They're careerists who are taking the contrarian position to differentiate themselves a little bit from other mainstream media people. But I could always tell they were careerists, particularly Sagar. And you know what, you wussy? Come on this show. I'll talk to you about it anytime. I'm not afraid, Sagar. Come on up and talk. He's not going to do anything. But that conversation happened with the guy because I used to stand next to him over on, as you're facing the stage, the left-hand side of the White House press briefing room. I used to stand right next to him because we were the people who weren't good enough to get seats. That's another story. But I always had a stand over there in the crowd.
I'm sorry.
But anyway,
what was the caller's name?
Brave. It's Brave from Atlanta. Just think Atlanta Braves.
All right. So Brave, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
All right. So I would say to you this. And just coming from an independent, I guess, independent journalist point of view, I don't work for a mainstream thing, right? You have to understand, too, that there's a lot of things that we want to say and we want to report, but we have bills to pay at the end of the month, and they will crush us. They crush every bit of dissent. They crush Facebook in particular. It's not the government you have to worry about anymore. it's big tech that you have to worry about. And Facebook, Google, and Twitter does the government's work. We are in an age of censorship that I never thought I'd see in this country. If I were to say the wrong thing, they will literally deperson you. And if you don't believe me, ask Alex Jones, ask Milo Yiannopoulos, ask Laura Loomer. They will deperson you. You'll be invisible. And say, well, they still have free speech. If you don't have free speech where people can see it, you don't have free speech. So, you know, we talk a lot about freedom and free speech in this country, but we don't practice it at all. And so it's easy to say, it's easy to sit on the sidelines, Bayo, but only when I'm on the radio do you do this? I swear, Lee, it must be you. He's quiet all day. When I come on this show, he barks like a madman. Okay?
To your point, first of all, I understand and I fully agree. I make content myself, and in my little small platform, I've taken many hits. I have my Facebook channel, my Facebook completely taken from me for things that going beyond that, your point leads into my question. I wanted to get, so two things I want to throw at you guys, so I don't want to take up too much more time. I'm sure you saw Hillary's comments, her interview on Morning Joe. She was coming out talking about treason and treating people being charged with treason for aiding and abetting or giving comfort to aiding and abetting, for giving comfort to Russia as if we are ourselves in a hot war with Russia. I wanted to get you guys' opinion on that because I feel that's a softball, and I'm pretty sure Lee would have a good rant for that. And then my second question, I firmly believe, first of all, no one wants to go to war. I've been in war zones. No one wants to go to war, but I fully believe that that Russia is justified in what they're doing, and we're the last ones to say who's not justified for invading a nation, right? But I fully believe that the way they taught us to be silent and to not question, and they came up with they propagated the meme of misinformation and disinformation during COVID. I fully believe that prepared the public for where we are now. Whereas you can't question and you can't say anything concerning this Russia thing. So my question, and that's the Democratic Party that did that. So my second question to you is, let's say the Republicans had been in charge or been in power during this time frame, right? Do you think that while our media is full of crap, especially corporate media is full of crap no matter what, do you think that the censorship and the propaganda would have been to the level that it is now? Not that I support Republicans, but I'm just wanting to get your take on that.
No, so let me answer that first, and I'll throw it to you, Carmine. It's a great question, Brave, and thanks for the call. David, New York, we'll take 1 second. I don't think it would be, because the thing is, Trump, and he basically announced, you must have seen at CPAC, he pretty much announced he's running in 2024. Would you agree with me on that, Carmine?
Correct, yes.
So he didn't come out and say, I am running for president in 2024. He said, we're doing it a third time. I don't know what he thinks. I don't know what anybody in denial on this thinks he's talking about doing for the third time. But the problem with Trump would have been, from a propaganda standpoint, a U.S. media propaganda, Trump would have said, well, you know, I'm not saying he said something like this, but I can see Trump going, well, you know, Vladimir Putin is right that there are Nazis over there.
Which he is.
Which he is. And that's why Trump would have said it. And the media, but you agree that Trump could have said something like that accidentally?
He said that Putin made a genius move. They act like he was donning a uniform and fighting for Russia. Look, man, the media, the whole thing is a joke, Lee. We don't have free speech in this country. It is an illusion. You have an illusion of free speech here. But I never knew it until I got into the media myself. You have an illusion of free speach in this country. You don't have actual free speech. And
let me say this. I want to make sure we get to David in New York, Carmine. Let me push back on one other thing that Brave said slightly. And I'm pushing slightly back on the cynicism. I think that COVID-19, I'm seeing more people figure out the Russian side on this and realizing the media BS. No, I'm not saying they're rushing to it yet. See what I did there as a pun, kind of. But I'm saying I'm seeing a few more people every day. And I would say if the information, from what you're seeing, Carmine, let me ask you this, then we'll go to David. Do you see more people becoming pro-Ukrainian or pro-Russian? And again, it's subtle right now, but which way do you see things trending in the information war? Carmine Sabia.
I think you see a lot more trending pro-Russian right now. I think you look at, I told you about what Wendy Rogers from Arizona said yesterday. I mean, and she knows you're risking your platform on Twitter when you do it. And not to belabor the point here about free speech, Lee, I'm surprised you're still allowed on Twitter, to be honest with you. I'm surprised they haven't deplatformed you yet. I'm surprised this show is still allowed on YouTube. And not to belabor the point, but to Brave's question, do you think it would have been different if Republicans were in charge rather than Democrats? I think it would have been different if Donald Trump was in charge and not Democrats.
Yes.
If you're asking, do I think it would be different if Lindsey Graham was president? No, I don't.
If anything, it would be worse. I agree with that 100%, Carmine. 202-521-1320. David in New York, across the river from Carmine. What's on your mind?
My man.
A short comment about free speech. There's this new social platform, media platform called Truth Social. It's not up yet. It's in the process of coming up. I've heard a little bit about it, and I went to their website. And on their website it says, I'm quoting a little bit from their website, a platform that encourages an open, free, and honest global conversation without discriminating against political ideology. Now, that sounds good, and if they really keep to that, well, that's sort of the antidote to Twitter and Meta and all that stuff. What do you think?
Well, yeah. I have an account over there. Do you have an account over there, Carmine?
I mean, I'm still on the waiting list, which, believe it or not...
No, but you have the account. I'm still on the waiting list, too.
Correct.
But you have the...
I have more friends in Trump world than you could shake a stick at, and I'm still on the waiting list, so...
Now, what's your number? Do you remember your number approximately?
100,000 something. I don't know. I should just call one. But
I'm right around there, too, 120,000, something like that. And but I'm going to be on that platform under my name, Stranahan, like I am on Twitter. And part of the reasons...
Actually, at Carmine, I dropped the last name.
Not, but it's pretty good if you can get that.
You know, I mean, it's
I don't have
fair, Carmine.
So the reason I think I'm still on social media, actually, Carmine, is I knew people, like I know Laura, I knew Milo, and I think they wanted to get kicked off.
They did.
You know what I'm getting at there, right?
Absolutely did. Yes.
So therefore, and also, and I'll say this, and I mean it, I don't have hate in my heart for anybody. So I don't hate people or express hate for people because I don't have it. Whereas some of the stuff that Laura was doing, whether you agree with it or not, attacking Muslim Uber and Lyft drivers, that's going to get you in trouble. You see what I'm saying, Carmine?
Correct. But again, where do you draw the line at what's okay to say and what's not? Because look what it's going to now. Well, but you can't speak okay about Russia. You know what I'm saying? And let me ask you to that point. Do you think, and I'll group them and you tell me one by one or as a group, Laura Loomer, Milo Yiannopoulos, Jack Poso, Chernovich, Tommy Lahren, are they white nationalists?
Jack Posobiec absolutely was working with Nazis in Washington, D.C. And he's also put Heil Hitler Nazi signs in his stuff. And he was working at, he and Cernovich were working with Jeff Geisia, who gave money to Richard Spencer, $5,000, and they were working with him directly. That's a long story. Laura is a Zionist, and I think it confuses things. Milo, it's a real mixed case, and that has to do with Bannon, understanding Milo's role in Gamergate. But interesting question I could talk about for a long time and have at some points. But let's take a short break. When we come back, straight out of Manhattan, Ted Rall will be joining us for his take on the current military action against Ukraine. Right up after this on The Backstory.
stuck in traffic? No problem. Stay informed. Stay tuned to Radio Sputnik on 105.5 FM or 1390 AM in the Washington, D.C. area. Need more? Follow us on Facebook or check us out on SputnikNews.com.
They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime.
Like beer? Yeah, we drank beer.
Whoever's in charge, and I want the report.
Let's talk about that.
Discussing all the controversies and news across the disunited states of America. Tune in to Fault Lines every weekday from 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern, only on Radio Sputnik.
In a media landscape filled with so-called journalists acting as stenographers for their billionaire bosses, there is a desperate need for news, analysis, and perspectives that buck the status quo and get to the heart of how domestic and international events impact you and me, as well as showing how we can get involved in the struggle to change that status quo. Check out By Any Means Necessary on Radio Sputnik, Monday through Friday from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern, to hear the stories and voices that mainstream media refuses to tell you. And join us as we connect the political, social, and economic movements shaping the world around us. That's By Any Means Necessary, Monday through Friday at 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern, right here on Radio Sputnik.
Hi, I'm political analyst Garland Nixon.
And I'm political scientist, author, and nationally syndicated columnist Dr. Wilmer Leon.
We're the co-hosts for The Critical Hour, airing Monday through Friday from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time here on Radio Sputnik in Washington, D.C.
We close out your day with a thorough and hard-hitting analysis of the day's top stories, where we bring in brilliant scholars, authors, and investigative journalists from around the world.
And on Fridays, it's panel time, when we do a roundup of the week's most important issues.
Join us to keep up with the world's top stories.
Enjoy an in-depth analysis.
And have a little fun along the way. Listen to our show,
The Critical Hour, Monday through Fridays on Radio Sputnik.
And we are back on The Backstory, best damn talk show in the world, Free Speech Zone. And I want to thank once again the great Carmine Sabia for joining us. It's a Carmine Monday. And let me just point out, we were talking, by the way, we're on 105.5 FM, AM 1390 in Washington, D.C. But one of the things, Carmine, that I think is protecting people now is the First Amendment. Because I do think that we have stronger protections in this country than they do. And I agree, there's all kinds of problems going on, but other countries don't necessarily have the same First Amendment protections that we have. And I think that is a little of a stopgap against things. By the way, I'll mention one other, we were talking about one platform. I'll mention VK.com. VK is a Russian social media platform like Facebook, and I'm on there under Stranahan, and I would urge people, because that's one, I'll put it like this, one thing's about VK is it's a very well-designed, good infrastructure, modern social media platform. And my friend Jason Goodman's been over there 6 years. He's never had a video censored talking about COVID or anything. And certainly in this situation, we're not going to get censored over there. So make sure you go to VK.com if you've not been over there. And it's free. It's like I say, like Russian Facebook's a good way to put it. But joining us now, great friend of the show, we always love having Ted Rall from RALL.com. Ted Rall. Hey, Ted, how you doing?
I'm good, Lee. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm a little, stressed. So let me ask you, I've asked you the question that I've asked other people, Ted. On a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is you could care less, and 10 is pretty damn obsessed, how obsessed have you been with watching what's going on in Ukraine? I've been like an 11. I'll be honest. When I'm not doing the show, I'm on Twitter. That's me. And I'm not saying it doesn't make me better than anybody. It makes me slightly crazier than everybody. But Ted, where are you at on this?
I'm about a 9.9. I'm leaving a little space for my cat, who I adore. So, but otherwise, 9.9.
Well, let me say this about your cat. I was saying earlier, I was talking about relationship stuff. I think that is, what I was saying, Ted, was as somebody who's going through a divorce, at first when I started dating, I was like, oh, it'll be nice to date somebody who's into politics. Now where I'm at, it's not that it's bad, but sometimes I don't want to talk, but I just want to lay there and snuggle. That's all I want to do. I don't want to talk about anything. And it seems to me pets, I assume your cat does not have a heavy interest in politics. Am I right, Ted?
Well, there is a political angle currently to my cat because he is a Russian blue. So, he has taken, so he has a side in this. So, most cats aren't political, but mine is.
No, that's well done. Well done.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
But I think that, but personally, because I know you are a cat lover, that is one of the advantages of pets, isn't it? It's a real break from the world. Seriously, isn't it?
It's true. It's sort of, it gets us back to a more basic place in life. It's a relationship that is not based on anything symbolic or ideological or religious. It's very simple and straightforward.
Yes. Now, do you have one of those cats? It's a cat, so it's only going to pay so much attention to you. But do you have an affectionate cat, or does it tend to? And I know cats show affection in different ways, but how's your cat's temperament, Ted?
Well, he's very sweet, and he will never bite or claw you, no matter how much of an idiot you are. He's a very friendly cat. Like if a stranger comes over, he'll come over and say hi and want to be pet. So I think he's kind of like, he's a good cat. But he's still a cat. There's still a certain reserve. You have to earn his affection. It's not like a dog where it just comes automatically. I think most people would be very pleased with him.
There we go. And Carmine, we hear your dog in the background occasionally. Do you agree with me that is, I don't want a pet, by the way. That's the other thing I've decided. At my age, 56, single, I don't want a pet in my house. This goes back to the thing I said about what, because I was saying before, I'd like maybe a girlfriend who's like clean, calm, and willing to sometimes just lay there and snuggle. But I'd also like a girlfriend who I worry that they pooped on the floor or the furniture.
Well, for $500 a night, you can get that girlfriendly, but no,
I don't want one. No, I don't want one who's I'm paying to poop on the furniture. Not to.
Oh, yes, I understand. Okay.
Not to.
No, man. I mean, you know what? For me, a dog is the best thing in the world, man. I love him. That's my baby, man. I had one before him. He passed away. It crushed my heart. I still miss him, and I have this one now, and I love him just as much. And that's kind of the thing, right? You said you have to earn your cat's love. I don't have to earn it. I mean, my dog loves me because he loves me. I don't want to have to wonder what mood my dog's in that day. You know what I mean?
I hear you. I hear that.
A cat's a lot like a chick. You know what I mean? Like,
that's true.
The cat's all of a sudden mad about something you did 5 months ago.
Right.
The cat can't talk, and just like a woman, the cat won't tell you what you did wrong. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
that's you're supposed to figure it out.
You're supposed to figure it out. And if something happened to you, the cat would just walk over you. Like, I want something.
Right.
I don't. Do cats really love? Do they love? I don't know.
Well, they like knowing that you're going to open the food, basically.
But I think cats look at it differently. Dogs look at you like that's my daddy and I love him. Cats look at you like that's my slave.
Well, it depends on the cat. I mean, at the right time of day, your cat will love you. My cat loves me in the evening. It's literally when I go to bed. He's fine, like at night. He's literally like after dinner. He's like, finally, the idiot's going to sleep in bed. That's what we do 23 hours a day. Finally, welcome to the club. And he jumps into bed next to me and flops down next to me and just wants to be pet as I go to sleep. But I mean, will he be there 10 minutes after I fall asleep? No, he will not. He will run away.
No, will he love you in the morning? Will he love you in the morning?
No, not even a little bit. But that's how that's what I'm used to. I was abused as a kid, and
I walk in the room, my dog tackles me, man. So I love cats. I love all animals.
Me too. I love dogs too. Dogs are awesome.
I'm not a cat or a dog person. I'm an animal person. I love animals.
I'll definitely have a dog if I ever live in the country. Definitely would want a dog. But I live in New York City. It's cruel to have a dog in a small New York apartment.
I'm a small New Jersey apartment. I'm probably 15, 20 tops.
And see, that's, you bring up, so now that I have my apartment, one of the things that's nice, it's not that I don't love animals. I've owned lots of animals. Just at my age, I don't want one around the house at all. Because after the show's over, I'm going to go to downtown Sioux Falls and get some dinner. And I'm not going to have to do at any point in the evening, no matter what happens, worry that I'm going to come home to new poop somewhere in my apartment.
But take your
if you had a cat, you wouldn't have to worry about it. And by the way, my cat is toilet trained, Lee. I just want to point this out.
Are you serious?
Actually gets on the toilet, does that?
Yeah, I have video. I can prove it. Yeah, it's true.
No, it's okay. I'm not into that video either, but thanks.
You have a son-in-law named Gaylord Fox.
Some people pay good money for that, Lee. I'm just saying.
I'm not judging anybody's kink. I'm just saying, no thanks on that. Now let's turn this to. Wait, Carmen, hang on a second. Let me. I'll just mention, by the way, that Vladimir Putin, well-known dog lover. That's the other thing. There's lots of footage. You can tell that Putin really loves. Have you ever seen Putin with his dogs? With dogs in general, Carmine?
Yes.
He clearly really loves. Right? Yes. He clearly is an animal lover.
I love horses too.
You can't fake that. But let me ask you, Ted. Let's turn to the military moves that are going on right now, the Ukraine war. What's your general take on what's going on? Just open floor, whatever you want to say about it.
Well, I think this is one of those things that was a long time coming. I was surprised that there wasn't some kind of conflagration that occurred years ago. I mean, the NATO policy of expansion east steadily. I did a deep dive on this, and like in 1991, basically Western Europe, NATO was 800 miles away from Russia's borders. And at that time, George H.W. Bush and Americans said, don't worry, to Yeltsin and then to and then later to Putin, don't worry, we're not coming towards you. Now, the Baltics have joined, all of Eastern Europe has joined NATO, and Ukraine is the weak spot, right? I mean, and I was thinking about this, the Nazis invaded the Soviet Union via Ukraine in 1941. And at the end of this misadventure, 4 years later, 27 million Soviet citizens were dead. That is not something that if you're Russian, you can forget or overlook or think is not important. And so, you kind of need, if you're Russia, to have a friendly Ukraine next door. You need that. And to have them applying to join NATO, it's kind of like, no, we can't allow that. So my take on it is, war is bad, invasions are bad. And that being said, it is really hard to see how Russia could let what Ukraine was doing, especially after the 2014 coup, pass. How could they? And it just seems like it's a situation that you can't possibly imagine, for example, the United States allowing Mexico to become part of the Warsaw Pact during the Cold War. And it's just like letting that go. That's just not going to happen. So, you know, I mean, war is bad. War is always bad. And then, you know, I have a lot of other thoughts about it too. I mean, it's the whole situation is unfortunate. I just really wish that NATO and the U.S. had taken Russia's concerns seriously, which they never did.
No, they were very clearly not taking them seriously. When this intensified in the past few months, they would literally go up, and I think this is why Vladimir Putin famously said empire of lies a couple times recently. The U.S. has been lying about it. Now, let's talk about something, and we got a clip here that, because Ted, you're not just a guest on, Ted is free to see other shows, Carmine. He's a frequent guest on a number of shows. On By Any Means Necessary, as well as Fault Lines, right? You appear all over the place here, right, Ted?
That's true.
Now, so you're affected as much as anyone. Let's hear some of, we were talking about this before, Hillary Clinton talking about Russian-funded media. Let's hear that clip, please.
We have to also make sure that within our own country, we are calling out those people who are giving aid and comfort to Vladimir Putin, who are talking about what a genius he is, what a smart move it is, who are unfortunately being broadcast by Russian media, not only inside Russia, but in Europe, to demonstrate the division within our own country.
So there we go. There's Hillary Clinton. Now, you know what? I remember I've talked to other people about this moment. It's great to have Carmine Sabia and Ted Rall on, because I remember the moment, Carmine, when you realized you were talking to a commie and that you liked him, right?
Yeah.
You remember that, Carmine?
Yes.
So Ted, in your role as the commie that people like, I think some people who are conservatives or Republicans, literally, Ted, I think you may have seen this occasionally. People go, well, you're a communist, you're a leftist, you love Hillary Clinton. And if anything, Ted Rall, my guess is you don't like Hillary Clinton more than Carmine and I, if that's possible. You're not at all a Clinton fan, are you?
Hillary Clinton is one of the worst people in the world. I mean, look, Joe Biden's not the best president we could possibly have. But right now, if Hillary Clinton were president, World War III would likely be happening. I mean, she's insane.
Absolutely.
You know, the missiles would be flying. She's a nut. I don't trust her. Here's how little I trust her. Her temperament is more high-strung than Donald Trump's. There, I've said it.
There we go. So Ted, not a Hillary Clinton fan. But have you ever been accused, when people find out you're on the left, of being a Clinton fan? Ted, have you ever been accused by that?
Absolutely, of course.
Yeah, and Carmine, this is one of the reasons I like to point out whenever anybody, I've actually defended anarchists, and I was at an event, and some people from Unicorn Riot, who's a very leftist video outlet, were outside. And I saw somebody come up to them who's a Republican and say, oh, you guys are a bunch of Clinton supporters. And I had to literally intervene on behalf of these anarchist leftists and say, no, you don't understand at all. They're not at all Clinton fans. And I think people, Carmine, do you think people often on the right paint too broad a brush and don't, it's not a nuance. They don't, let me say this. Ted, I assume you don't like Hillary Clinton because, from your viewpoint here, because you're on the left. That's why you don't like her, correct? In your head.
That's a big part of it. I mean, part of it is I do dislike her ideology and her position on the issues, which is, you know, obviously the most important thing. I will also say temperamentally and stylistically, I mean, seriously, I can't stand anything about her. I don't like her voice. I can't stand the way she dresses. I can't stand the way she talks. I think she's annoying as hell.
But you must enjoy her cackle
Now I'm getting
Am I
confused.
right?
Are you talking about? I'm getting confused. Are you talking about Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris?
Is there a difference?
Not really.
Not much. Nominally, I guess Kamala Harris is slightly to the left of Hillary Clinton, sort of, when she's not sending innocent African American men to death row.
Only because she has to be right now, my friend. She's whatever they tell her to be, so she can keep the job or get the job, or come on.
Yeah, she's gross. They're both gross.
Yeah. So now, what do you think about what Hillary Clinton? So you're into Hillary Clinton. We got that, Ted. But what do you think about what she said about giving aid and comfort? You know what they do? Let me say something about this. This is one reason she's awful. Do you know what happens to people who are convicted of treason? They get shot.
Yep.
They get murdered.
Yep.
So her implication that I should be shot, which is her implication.
Well,
she didn't mention
about Trump, but yes.
Well, no, because look, Trump does not host a show on Sputnik. Although, Mr. Trump, if you'd like to, I can put you in touch with some people. We would take Donald Trump as a host. That'd be fantastic. But literally, when she's talking about aid and comfort, that's treason talk. And I think people should be very worried. I don't think anybody should be killed for free speech. So Ted, I mean, I'm not throwing it to you so you can go, well, I don't know, maybe. Because I assume you're not taking that position. What do you think about what Hillary Clinton said there, aid and comfort, though, Ted?
Look, I think she's a disgusting person. She's a McCarthyist. She's a neo-McCarthyist who is trying to tell other people what they're allowed to say. And, and also I beg to, it is entirely possible to be a patriotic American and completely and have a nuanced view of what's going on between Russia and Ukraine. It is not, her point of view reminds me so much of when Bush said, you're either with us or you're against us. That kind of rhetoric is wrong and, frankly, anti-American.
What she's saying is, you don't. Again, this goes back to I'm belaboring the point. It goes back to exactly what I said. You don't have free speech in this country. You have an illusion of free, because that's what they're trying to take it to. What? You said Putin has a point? Off with his head. I mean, and that's literally what we're talking about.
Now, Ted, let me ask you another question, though. As somebody on the left who knows that groups like Code Pink, you're generally like Medea Benjamin and what she's saying, I assume, broadly. When she comes out and is anti-war, you agree with that. But have you noticed that on the left, the peace and justice movement has been very anti-Russia in this case? Have you noticed that? What's your opinion on that, Ted?
It's gone.
I have noticed that. And look, I'm anti-war too, but I'm not a pacifist. So, war's to be avoided at all costs. And I think certainly, but with the exception, generally speaking, is people have a right to defend themselves. This Russia-Ukraine thing is very complicated, and it's really tragic because it's between two people who are, culturally so similar, and it is tragic. It should not have come to this. I hate to say it. I think the U.S. is behind this. I think the U.S. riled it up and made it happen. It's hard to understand, really, why a country that was a member of the Soviet Union, that borders Russia, would choose to go down this road, really, truly. And, there's a lot of aspects to this that are bizarre. I mean, you have a Jewish president, but, a national police and a National Guard that are controlled by a neo-Nazi organization. I mean, the whole thing is, it is tragic and messed up, and it's not simplistic like this. It's easy to be anti-war in general. I mean, who isn't? But, you do have to consider that there are, if you were the president of Russia right now, what would you be likely to do? It wouldn't be much different, probably, for most people than what Putin's doing.
Well, and I'll say this, too. Speaking of commie artists, I was playing Woody Guthrie's All You Fascists Are Bound to Lose this weekend and dedicating it to Ukraine. And people need to remember Woody Guthrie's guitar famously had a sticker on it that said, "This machine kills fascists." So, again, the difference between a pacifist and being anti-war is, I think, very an important distinction. I've talked about it. Part of it's realizing where the wars come from. Who's starting the wars, right? And in this case, when you're looking at who are the fascists, very clearly, I think it's Ukraine and the people backing them. Ted, what say you?
Well, Ukraine, let's just say that, is it fair to say that the Ukrainian government is fascist? No. Is it fair to say that they have fascists as an important part of their government? Yes. So, it's real fascists, old-fashioned fascists who wear swastikas on their uniforms and on their and carry Nazi flags. I mean, could we say, there are fascist elements in, say, the, American police departments and in the U.S. military, but it's not the same thing. The fact is that to be charitable, the Ukrainians tolerate fascism. That's the nicest thing I can say.
Let me push back slightly on that a little bit. Zelensky, not right sector, Zelensky has shut down 4 TV stations in the past few months in his country. That's fascist, sorry, and is going after his political opponents and jailing them and charging them with treason. So I think what Zelensky himself has done, shutting down TV stations, jailing his political components, and I can see why. I think you know what I'm talking about, right, Ted? You've heard that, but it's not.
Yeah, I do know what you mean. And, by the way, there's a lot of that going around, right? Like the EU, is banning RT and Sputnik. That is, sorry, that's, fascist. It's no free press there, no freedom of expression there. I mean, my favorite is it's because there's pro-war propaganda. Well, I'm sorry. So are you going to ban every Western media outlet because CNN, MSNBC, Fox, they've all supported wars in the past?
And we only got a few seconds left, Ted. Great appearance as usual. Thanks again to Carmine Savi for joining us as guest host today. Thanks to Ian Schilling in the first hour. Let me just ask you this, Ted, in the final seconds we have here. I would say what we're seeing with the social media censorship is a form of fascism. It's corporate authoritarianism, and it's being used. It's the government working with corporations, which is kind of the definition of fascism in a crude way, to do the bidding of shutting down free speech. What say you, Ted Rall?
I agree with that analysis. Obviously there's more to fascism than that, but yes, a crude definition, I totally agree. That's right.
Yeah, and that's why I said it's crude, not crude the way I often am when I'm talking to people mothers who go after me on Twitter, which I've been known to do. Ted Rall, fantastic appearance. Carmine, I'll talk to you later, okay, brother?
God bless.
Good job, everyone. Thanks again to our intrepid producer, Rod. Fantastic job, as usual, putting together the show. And thanks for filling us in on the fighters that are Mayor of Kiev and his brother. We got more coming up tomorrow on a Free Speech Zone, the best damn talk show in the world. Essential listening for these times. All you fascists are bound to lose, especially here on The Backstory.